OK, there is a volcano for the ages coming up in a matter of minutes because this pertains to Friday night at Adelaide Oval. Port Adelaide up against Hawthorn. Hawthorn have been the fairy tale story of season 2024, but it was no fairy tale ending.
No, it wasn't. It was 4 goals apiece in the last quarter, and this was just one of the great crumbing goals you'll see in a final, and it was a pleasure to be there. Like, this is what football is about. This is finals football at its finest. The pressure in this game, the intensity in this game was off the charts. So full credit to both sides, but I just thought Weddle there let himself down on Horne-Francis, couldn't stick with him. Don't know what Jordan Sweet was doing there, whacking the ball in defensive 50 out, which cost them the goal to Sicily. Then McGuinness, I thought, got hold of Travis Boak with his running power on the wing in that last quarter. So it was just toe-to-toe. They're throwing themselves around. 4 points in it. You see here, huge tackle by Burne-Jones. So this was a game of moments. At the end, any team could have won it. And you're talking about game of moments. Unfortunately, James Sicily just didn't kick this goal at the end, so that's how tight this game was. But full credit to Port Adelaide for responding the way they did after the week they had and taking away the game of Hawthorn.
Yeah, they were brilliant. And I love what Ken Hinkley did. So you've got Houston and you've got Farrell out, your 2 main halfback flankers, and they were destroyed at halfback flank last week against the Cats. So they move a couple of players. They've got Logan Evans back there, and I love the game of Jace Burgoyne. I didn't think he was ready for the physicality of the first final last week. I thought that he was very much outside, but this game, the other night, at half-back, he flew for everything. So he was good at ground level, he was clean, but when he needed to go in the air, I thought his courage on this game to go in the air time and time again, and he had a cool head. Where everybody else was losing their head the other night, his disposals meant something, his disposals were clean and calm, and this one, to kick the goal, to keep them in front, was fantastic.
Kane, you put out a social media post. I mean, you're full of praise for Port Adelaide, obviously, but what did you mean? Did you say something like they had no right?
Well, they didn't.
Well, can you explain that?
Yeah, I just think with the way that Hawthorn were playing is the best team in it statistically since round 8 or 9 with the momentum that they had. Port Adelaide coming off an 84-point loss. No Burton, no Farrell, no Houston in their defensive to shift the magnets. They had Charlie Dixon, who was selected but then withdrew. They had Todd Marshall, who's hardly played and not ready to be at the level. They've got a young player in Lorenz coming in late for his second game. There was just so many factors going against them and so many factors in the favour of Hawthorn, including some really questionable umpiring decisions which led to goals that changed the momentum of this game. They had no right to win this game of footy. I've got it right up there, like right up there in terms of historical performances. Now, what does it mean? Well, not a whole lot, but it's better than going out in straight sets. They're going to have to do it again against a really good side in Sydney. But for Ken Hinkley to move the magnets, to shut Hawthorn down against all odds, when he really was coaching for his career, I just thought it was an enormous performance.
Speaking of Ken Hinkley...
Yeah, well, as drama-packed as that final quarter was, the emotion then spilled over post the siren, and we've seen these pictures now regularly, and Ken Hinkley making his way over to the ceremony attached to Luke Bruce's 300th game, but it brought him in contact and in the distance of Hawthorn players. You can see there making the comments to Jack Ginnivan on the back of the "See you in 14 days" tweet that he had on Brodie Grundy earlier in the week, and then the reaction of that comment and those words of the captain, James Sicily, who then took it upon himself to push back on Kenny. You can see Jarman Impey and also Massimo D'Ambrosio trying to calm this situation. It even spilled over into the lifting and the elevating of Luke Bruce off the ground, with Sicily still spraying Ken Hinkley. So it took off. Let's just have a listen to what everyone now said in this matter, and then we've all got differing views on this. You'll see Ken Hinkley, you'll see Sam Mitchell, and you'll see James Sicily here.
Jack said what he said through the week, and I just told him after the game he wasn't going anywhere. Right. And you know what? I don't know social media. I just do what I do. I probably shouldn't have done it. I should apologise to the boys. I shouldn't have probably done it. But the reality was, you throw something our way, we're going to throw something back occasionally.
We had a very young player who was having had some very aggressive words said to him by a much older man who's been in the game for a long time. And the captain of my club stood up for him. And so I think it's really tough to sit here right now getting rushed by the AFL. Make sure you're at your press conference on time. And so I understand the emotions of this time of year are really, really difficult, and I'm really proud of our captain, who would have been just as emotional, who was able to stand up and lead in a way that he could be proud of.
Will you seek to speak to Ken after that?
Absolutely not.
There was an incident after the game where I had some words with a Hawthorn player that I wish I hadn't had in a moment that I shouldn't have had. But it was an emotional game, a big result. There was stuff said during last week that I certainly didn't enjoy, but I shouldn't have let that moment get to me.
It's not the first time that Ken's done that, won't be the last, but it's an emotional game and sometimes it gets the better of us. All the best of them for the rest of the finals. But as I said, I'll always defend my teammates.
All right, that brings us to the volcano.
Jeez, he's emotional, James Sisley. Yeah, I just reckon it's been
he just lost a final.
Yeah, well, please. I think it's been one of the great overreactions I've ever seen, including this from two former Hawthorn champions.
Oh, I thought it was embarrassing from my point of view. I really did. How he did it and where he did it. You understand Luke Bruce was coming off. There's going to be a guard of honour, recognising a champion of the game, 300 games. I don't think there was anything to be gained.
As a coach, that's pretty disappointing. You'd think, I reckon Ken as a coach would sit back and go, we've just had a win, a great win. We should be talking about how well our team played. Instead, a coach is sit there mouthing off to a losing side. Pretty poor form.
It was not aggressive, it wasn't threatening. He said, you're not flying anywhere, Jack. So let's take a look at their coach, the four-time premiership winning coach, Alistair Clarkson, and some of the moments that he has had, which, of course, Jordan and Luke would have had no issue with this at the time. I mean, it's Clarko's greatest hits as we roll them here. And I think we look back and we sort of smirk at some of these issues. That's directed to you. Lauder, of course, that was an emotional game. We understand the emotion in the game. We understand the emotion for Ken. This is this year with Webster, where he entered the field and had a crack at him after another moment with that, where he wasn't happy with the treatment, clearly, of one of his players. So this is their coach, the four-time coach that was abusing umpires at an under-9s game.
Sorry, but why have you brought him into it?
Because he's their four-time premiership coach, Luke Hodge and Jordan
I think that's grossly unfair.
How is that?
It doesn't make
unfair?
Ken's right, Kane, just because he's done wrong things.
Yeah, well, it does, because, and it doesn't make his right, but the criticism towards Ken Hinkley over saying you're not flying anywhere, Jack, from 20 metres away was not threatening. It was a part of an emotional response to a coach who's under serious pressure. And some of the greatest moments in our game are coaches who have had moments similar to that, which we now look back and celebrate. We love this. Like, how good is this? You reckon that's humble?
Not towards a player.
Do you think that's humble though in victory? Do you think
it's theatre?
100%, exactly.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yes.
It's theatre.
And I agree with you on that.
So that is that. Like, so this is the moments that we love from coaches who it means so much to them. For Ken to say after Jack Ginnivan had thought he was going to a prelim final, you're not flying anywhere. These are great coaches. These are what great coaches do. Is it ideal? Probably not, but is it worth the overreaction that we've had there? Brad Scott trying to line up David King. Like, come on. We got Chris Scott, the best coach in football right now, having discussions with a player at half or quarter time after he's not happy with some treatment. So Hawthorn have given it out all year, and we've loved it, and we've been along for the ride, and we've celebrated it, and we've said how great it is. But the minute it comes back to them in a very slight way to say you're not flying anywhere, Jack, they have soaked it up like you wouldn't believe.
I see it so differently to Kane, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. I'll start Jack Ginnivan. I knew it would come back to bite Jack Ginnivan. Like, you just don't want a player within your team just giving an inch to the opposition. I knew it would come back to bite Jack Ginnivan. He's got to be careful, because I don't think they'll have a real tight leash on Jack Ginnivan now. I think Hawthorn, because they might have supported him publicly, but internally I don't think they'd be happy with him at all. So I think he let himself down massively. He's got to think of others, not just about himself and what he does on his phone. So that's a start for me. And Ken, you're the leader of the football club. That is embarrassing from my end.
But what about for Sheeds, who you love? Like, do you think that's embarrassing, or do you think that's good?
No, that was very different. That's not towards an opposition player.
But it's not,
what about the Mitchell White one?
Yes, embarrassing by Sheeds, Mitchell White, and he gets fined heavily for it. You don't do that. So I just think, with Ken, you go to your media conference and say, you know what, I had that up against the wall, on the wall for my players. It helped us, and that gained us an edge throughout the week, rather than doing it in a petulant way out in the field.
I know everyone's got their own views. Mine is Jack Ginnivan, if you dish it out, you've got to be prepared to cop it, all right? And I think he does cop it.
I think he has copped it, yeah.
No, he's copped it.
Yeah. So that's fine. But Ken Hinkley obviously should know better to be sucked into it like that, all right? But obviously in the emotions, in the moments after the match, For Sam Mitchell to bring the age into it, what does it matter? What does it matter whether he's 58 and Jack Ginnivan's only a kid? It shouldn't matter. We're forever being told, well, it's a man's game, OK? So I don't understand the whole age insinuation there. And for the AFL to investigate it, OK, I get that you've got to go through the motions, but please don't issue a fine to Ken Hinkley just for adding some drama.
Well, he almost certainly will get one, TJ, just to sign off on. I'm not trying to validate it. I'm just telling you that they almost certainly will get a fine today.
Why?
Well, they need to act on the back of what happened last week with Jason McCartney and Tom Pelton.
They're so far apart.
I know they're far apart, but they can't be seen to be walking past it. I'm with you. I don't think they should, but they can't not do anything but fine him today on the back of it. So I'm with you too, TJ. The use of the phrase young player and older man, I mean, it's got nothing to do with it. Jack Ginnivan wasn't considered a younger player during the course of the year when they did celebrate his antics. So, yeah, and for Luke Hodge to be talking about a 60-year-old man, Ken Hinkley's not 60, he's 57, nearly 58, and to use that as a problem in this whole debate, grow up.
I found it odd.
And stop looking up about it.
I found it odd, but I will say I think it's grossly unfair on your part, Kane, to bring Alistair Clarkson into it. I'm not an apologist. Well, I don't understand what he's got.
He's such a revered coach of those two.
But he's got nothing to do with it.
He's the revered coach of those two people who I'm critical of, who have overreacted to that. It was okay when they were winning premierships and Clarko was carrying on like that. You didn't hear Jordan Lewis and Luke Hodge criticising their coach.
But you don't know whether they can.
It's the reason they both got it wrong, in my opinion. When you're a leader of men and you're the leader of your club, you're not smashing walls and you're not carrying on out on the field.
But some of the greatest have done it. So we can't hang Ken Hinkley like Chris Scott.
So what did you think when Choco Williams had his tie and doing that one?
Well, he's won a premiership. I love it.
Well, hang on. Oh, so that's all right, is it?
I'm saying Ken's all right.
No, yeah, I know, but you're saying Choco was okay. But then you showed Mick Malthouse with the jacket.
Yeah, I'm agreeing.
Right.
I like that. This is theatre. These are the greatest coaches.
So should the
football.
AFL fine Ken?
Absolutely not. Right. I'm with you, T. We're arguing the same thing.
Nice one, Kane. I'm with you. I'm with Ken as well. So let's have a look.
You just sit on the fence, Nathan.
Well, I'm just letting you talk about it.
What's your view?
I've got no problems with what Jack Ginnivan did, got no problems with what Ken did or James Sicily. It's a big game. It is an emotional game. You've got to remember, Ken's finished second. Everybody's tried to take something away from Ken this year, saying, you're not going to be the coach, we're going to move you on. We've already got a coach in waiting. Everybody's wanting to bag Ken. He let the emotions get the better of him, absolutely. But in terms of how bad it wasn't that bad. I thought it was great theatre. We're in the entertainment industry. Nice? All right. Let's put
You can add that to your mixtape that you said.
Let's put a full stop on that. And Lordo spoke about the Giants not going fast enough. So let's have a look at Port in the last 2 minutes. They needed a better plan than this. So they needed to come out here and chip. They kept giving the ball back to Hawthorn time and time again in these last 2 minutes. They didn't handle it well. So the first one they kick out comes back into Sicily. The next one, this just needs to be a chip in here somewhere. They're all lined up over here, but have a look at the time, 1:03. They just need to find a small target. Yes, they won the game, but they look at this and go, how can we do this better? How can we do it better? Again, they go inside forward 50. They take the mark. He immediately turns his back. Look at these players he could chip the ball to. 26 seconds. That takes 20 seconds off the clock. But he goes back and they bomb it out again for a third time in a row. And for a fourth time, then they had to defend again. So the kick from Asava should have been a chip and it should have been game over. And they have to defend another small ball going in. That could have quite easily been marked, but they just needed to handle that last 2 minutes a little bit better. Yes, they won, but there's always improvement.
And Brownie, we knew on the day of the game, Friday, from people in Adelaide telling us that Charlie Dixon was going to be late withdrawal. He was, and that left Todd Marshall alongside Mitch Georgiades. And Marshall then, unfortunately, suffered another concussion. It's his second concussion in the past 5 weeks. And whether it happened in that first moment there or that knee from Georgiades, the teammate, and there's another tackle you're about to see from Hardwick later in the game, whatever it was, it may have been a combination of all of those moments. This is that third one I'm referring to in the third quarter, but he was subbed out. He's now had 5 concussions in the past 3 seasons, and it's a genuine concern and worry now as to his state in the game with the head knocks he's been receiving.
Kane, this time last week you were very critical of Zach Butters, right? But in your defence, not once did I hear you utter the word soft, but it seems to have taken on this narrative of its own.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when Paul Marsh goes and squeals to the Herald Sun and says things that I haven't said. I said he needed to grit his teeth and toughen up this week after being subbed out at half-time when they were 20 points down last week with what wasn't really a significant issue for them. So that's that part. The good part is that Zach Butters did grit his teeth and he did toughen up, and it was extraordinary, the performance. Now, this is what you expect from your vice-captain of the footy club. There wasn't a serious issue for him. You can see that he was cleared to play on the Saturday. They confirmed that on the Tuesday, and this is the response. So everything that I asked for him to do last Sunday at this desk, he has done that. Incredible player. The toughest player in football is voted by his players for a reason, and that's exactly what he needed to do. So for Paul to say that he was green, he was struggling to breathe, at half-time needed to be subbed out, well, that performance there was what I was expecting.
And just on the Hawks, I think their forward line's an issue, so bringing Barras and Battle in is great. So I wonder if Sicily could be the forward that they're looking for next year, because once they moved Sicily forward, it was great, but their back line was a mess without him, so I think it's something they could consider next season.
They're under a lot of pressure next season, aren't they, to sort of like back up what we've seen they're capable of doing.
And once you've been seen and everyone knows what you do, well, then it's harder to perform.
As Port Adelaide will be doing, moving straight through to a preliminary final at the expense of Hawthorn. Nath, tell us how they did it.
Well, they were outstanding. It was all about their pressure. Mitch Georgiades kicked 3. Willie Rioli, I thought he was fantastic. Watson kicked 3 to go with his 4. Newcombe, 31. A lot of those were handballs. Scrimshaw was very good again. Jace Berg, I thought, just about the best man on the ground. Wines and Evans were good. But that man, Mitch Georgiades, who did kick 3 in a pressure-packed game, joins us on the Sunday Footy Show. Mitch, thanks for joining us. Have you ever played in a game with as much pressure as Friday night?
No, that was an amazing game. It was definitely one of the best games I've been a part of. Throughout the whole game, it was momentum shifts. It was a pressure game, as you said, and it was definitely one to remember.
So the week that you had, a lot of spoken about the disaster that was the qualifying final. I think you were going to train on the Monday, but that may have been brought forward, so the group came in a little bit earlier. From that moment, was it about leaving it behind and focusing on the next game? Or how was the week? It was a tough one.
Yeah, absolutely. We came in a day earlier to discuss, obviously, a really disappointing qualifying final, and we made a real emphasis to analyse it within that 24 hours and then to move on as quick as possible. We knew it wasn't up to standard clearly, and the ability for us to move on and show a bit of maturity through the week to focus on Friday night was it was something that we're really proud of, and to get a win was huge. So we'll touch on how you did it in a moment, but now I'm interested in what you do after the win and moving on, because it was such an emotional night for the footy club and you performed so well, but you have to do it again against a side that's just sitting there waiting for you. So at what point do you now focus on Sydney? Yeah, I think it'll be almost identical week to last week. I mean, we'll review it within the 24 hours. We'll go back to the club tomorrow and go through that. And then from there, we'll focus completely on Sydney. Another challenge ahead, which is really exciting. They're such a great team, and nothing really changes throughout the week.
Mitch, the last quarter moments, we'll take a look at them. It was so dramatic, but you guys, from the start, your pressure was as good as any side we've seen all year. But your pressure's been good for the previous 8 rounds in terms of home and away football. You just got it wrong against Geelong. But talk us through the last quarter, and congratulations to you as well for standing up in such big moments. But it was a game of momentum swings.
Yeah, that's right. We knew going into the game it was going to be a game purely on pressure and contest, and that's what finals are built around. And you see moments like this throughout the game, and I think everyone had a moment like that, and that's what put us in great stead to get the victory. And it was definitely one of the most high-pressure games I've ever been a part of.
Mitch, can I ask you about how did the playing group react? Like, there was obviously a lot of focus on Zach Butters this time last week from one of your premiership stars in Kane Cornes. What's the players' reaction to that sort of criticism when someone is singled out like Zach Butters?
Well, I think we all know Zach really well as a club, and as a person, he's probably my best mate, and we know how tough he is and what he brings to the group and energy. And I mean, if you tell Zach no, he's going to completely do the opposite. So Zach, he's a talent, he's a tough player, and we know what he's going to get each week from him.
Mitch, what was your take on the Ken Hinkley, James Sicily furore post-match?
Yeah, it was an interesting one. Obviously, we know how passionate Ken is, and sometimes he wears his emotions on his sleeves, and probably, like he said to himself, he got the better of him at that stage. And but as a club, we probably throughout the week took it as a bit of disrespect, the comments that were made, and not just from Jack, but probably from the whole media itself, and potentially ruling us out. So I thought it was a really great maturity for us as a group all of last week to put that behind and move forward. But yeah, we're 100% behind Ken. We love his emotion. It's what makes him such a good coach at times as well. But probably, as he said, he'd probably like to take it back.
Hey, Mitch, can you tell us, though, how much Ken used it in the pre-game and during the week?
Oh, he didn't use it overly amounts, but he just said it's not something that we don't want to be treading on as a team, and it's time to show maturity and to step up. If people want to say stuff about that, we've really got to take it on and say, are we okay with that? So I think, yeah, like I said, it was a great maturity for us as a team to react to that and to put in a performance the way we did and do it in the hard way.
Mitch, I thought it was Jordan Sweet's best game since he's been at the football club. Took on Lloyd Meek. His work around the stoppages, the pressure he put on, and the chase of Mabior Chol was fantastic.
Yeah, he's been a great story this year. I think probably from the start of the year where he was probably a bit disappointed he wasn't playing week in, week out, and then getting the opportunity. He's coming in and he's taking it with both hands. He's been amazing, really, to see what he's done throughout the year. He keeps growing as a player, and the boys around the midfield love playing with him. And we love playing with him everywhere else. So he's been a nice story, that's for sure.
Well done. You're a great story too, mate. Well done on your performance on Friday night and the teams. And, mate, well done also. Have you broken into a display home to do this or something, have you? I mean, that is... I know that you live with your mate Frankie Evans, but that is the cleanest house that we've actually seen in all of our interviews. Yeah,
it's Mum was literally just around here then, and she says it's completely changed from 5 years ago when I was probably the messiest one in the house. So I don't know what's happened. I guess I've grown up a little bit, probably.
All right, good stuff, mate. You've certainly got your house in order when it comes to finals football at the moment. So good luck for whatever might lie ahead. And we've got a terrific prize pack coming your way. In fact, Kane's going to bring it over on the plane and hand deliver it to you.
Yep, we'll do that.
How nice. Awesome.
OK, good on you, mate. Thanks for joining us, Mitch.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Mitch Georgiades joining us
Good
there.
story, TJ. He's their most dangerous forward. He's had a huge year.